Okay, everybody, so we're back. Believe it or not, this is like the third week straight we haven't actually fallen off the train with a schedule or podcast. So, if we hit a month, we'll do some sort of celebration.
It'll be the first time ever.
First time ever we've stuck to some sort of schedule
Outside of
that's
the main
coherent.
show.
Well, even that's gone. But,
That's gone to shit a few times, but I think we've had months here and there where we have been really good.
Yeah,
there was that
that's
year
true.
that you wanted to hit a certain number of episodes before Christmas, and we did manage to do it. So
Yeah,
that
by
was
like
a-
doubling down on episodes. Like, we should just put out 2 in this week because numbering.
It worked. We
Yeah,
got to
it
that
did.
number. It was a proud moment.
Well, I think the thing that helped it was when sometimes you were gone. I think like you even went to Bosnia sometimes, right? So I would be the one to connect the call and then record it. So like that's what helped keep it going too.
Oh, yeah,
It's
no,
like, man,
Joe was
Oh, yeah,
on
well.
that quite a few vacations. Joe would take it upon himself and do all that, so we didn't fall behind,
Yeah.
which is good, because it's the main show. Yeah, but first, I do want to give a shout out to everybody that's on iTunes. Our episodes are doing really well. Book the Ticket's doing well. Pass the Remote is doing really well on there as well. Because a lot of people, YouTube, you have to because it renders the whole video, so it's using a lot of bandwidth, so people wait for the iTunes version to show up, which is usually 24 to 48 hours later. So that's where a lot of our hits come in. So just thanks to everybody listening. We're not ignoring you, but here you go.
You'll have to
I
stick
mean,
off topic up on iTunes as well.
I-
because
that
that's
did go
really
up, yep.
well received
well,
this week.
iTunes is like a podcasting, so it's like the first main podcasting. This is like a video, and sometimes you're right, people don't have the bandwidth, or you probably shouldn't be watching a video while you're driving. So like, that you got to watch out with that.
You say that
Off
now,
topic's a
but they
podcast, stick
should
around.
be listening to it. They should just watching a video, be like, I wonder what this person said.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, this is your host, Armin. I'm here with Joe,
How's it going?
Mitch,
Hello?
Tristan.
I hate mornings
Yeah, we all do.
But it's the evening.
out here in California.
And last but not least, we got Tom, who did bring back Off Topic this past week. You guys might have seen it just pop up, suitably titled like Rebirth. So there you
Yeah,
go.
we're starting again from number 1. Hopefully we're recording another episode tomorrow, so fingers
For
crossed.
some reason in the comments, people thought we were talking about actual DC Rebirth issues.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just read the title, and if they see the word Rebirth, they don't even watch the video. They just comment, "Oh, DC Rebirth
Man,
sucks."
we got some good like news today on the movie show. I would say
It depends on what you see as good news, but I guess let's get into
I
topic
mean,
one.
interacting type in these words, like it's a good discussion because like it is, I guess, technically not good news for certain things.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, the big news that the first topic is all about is Star Wars The Last Jedi leaks and spoilers. Now, it all started, I think, when J.J. Abrams was brought on and his mystery box. And the moment he says mystery box, everybody wants to know what it is. So we got a ton of leaks regarding Episode 7. Now, Episode 8 seems to be following the exact same thing. And recently, someone leaked a action figure, like, set, which shows, like, half the Death Star in its Snoke's throne room. So it looks like he might be orchestrating everything from, like, the remains of the Death Star. So is he going to be on, like, Endor or something? Or, like,
I
don't know.
don't know. I haven't really heard too much of the leaks. Somehow, there's this thing where people try too hard to avoid spoilers, right? And they end up finding it. But I didn't even know there was leaks. I guess I didn't check it out. But the thing with like you bring up the Death Star, and I'm like, should there be another one? Like,
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
yeah, like I mean, I love
think we're
Star
all a bit
Wars,
sick of
right?
them.
But like, I love Star Wars. We all do, and our mean is like live and die by. But I would assume even those hardcore fans like you would be like, can we try something different?
So, here's the thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think this is a good topic of discussion. Let's talk a little bit less about spoilers, which I'll bring a few in here that might be true or not. But Star Wars, I think, it doesn't have the same. How do I say this without making everybody attack me? And remember, I fucking love Star Wars. I'm gonna be getting a Star Wars tattoo soon. Trust me. But here's the thing.
There's no way around it.
Like, it doesn't have the global spanning different types of stories you can tell in these movies that like Marvel or DC have. And I mean that in a like weird sort of insulty way, because it's like everything they're doing feels like we've seen it and it's been done. There's like no innovation. There's nothing new. It's like, oh, look, it's a TIE fighter, but it's slightly different. Like,
Yeah, it's like they're trying to redesign playing it safe.
right? Yeah,
Well, that's not even because what I always think works, right, is taking what people love and just making it slightly different. I think the Marvel movies and even the DC movies, they're at a core, there is something similar about each of their franchise movies, but they just make them different. And with Star Wars, it's not, I don't even think it's even making them slightly different. I just think they're majority the same, at least with the Marvel and DC movies, they're 25%, we'll say, right? They're the same. There's a core of it, 1/4, but the majority of it is keeping it different, keeping it fresh. And, that it sounds like we're bagging on Star Wars, but I think it's just because we know there is such potential with the stories that there is. And, we mentioned it, I think, whenever The Force Awakens came out, that we would love to see something where very before the Jedi, like who's the first Jedi, who's the first Sith type of stuff,
Right.
like back then. And that would maybe be a little bit different because, I mean, the prequels don't necessarily do the best job of establishing the
At least they
Jedi.
had a fresh approach. It was different.
yeah.
That's the
But
only
was
thing
it
to really
though?
say about it.
What
I would
was the
say, yeah.
prequels different? They were kind of A New Hope, just more boring.
Yeah.
I would say
there's a
they're
lot
little
of
bit-
similar plot elements to the originals in the prequels.
well,
I mean, technically, but I mean, the whole world that it's based in is different. Whereas it very much feels like they're just going back to the trilogy, and it's fine to play up for nostalgia, but you need to make sure that, like Joe said, there's got to be a balance, and you've got to have more fresh stuff and
Here's,
new stuff. Than
like my
old
thing
stuff,
as a
really.
diehard Star Wars fanboy, and I'm a person, and if people follow me on Instagram and stuff, you see every week I own every single comic, every comic con I go to. I buy variant covers of ones I already have. I'm trying to complete literally the entire collection. I love Star Wars, and I'm at this point where everything Disney has done is playing so safe. They're sticking around to stuff that's familiar, not really expanding it much. It's like, oh, look, Thrawn is back. I'm like, yay. And then it's the safest approach to Thrawn you could really take that doesn't really make him this formidable big guy that's ruling the galaxy. You're like, oh. And it's just like...
He's in the wrong time period to do that, really.
Yeah, I think they're just
Rebels
kind
is
of
still
like...
better than the movies.
Oh, I would agree 100%. And they're kind of just peddling along because they know they can sell us anything. And it just kind of feels cheap in like a terrible way. I don't know how to describe really how it feels what they're doing.
Look, Force Awakens, 2015, right? If I remember, was it 2015, 2016?
2015.
Can't remember.
15, yeah.
Okay, so Marvel movies that came out around that time, you saw like they were doing Thanos and all that, and I think what people love is that everything matters and that there's an ultimate like end goal. Like with the Marvel, Marvel's still gonna go after with the movies, but Thanos is kind of like that ultimate end goal, and you never really got that with Force Awakens. I would say like it's still like there's another Death Star. There's like there's the fresh thing, but there's also I don't think they necessarily set up a lot like for the ultimate end war. There's Snoke, that's interesting, but not enough of them. I would say. Maybe hopefully there's more this time around, but that I feel like that's what they need more of if they're gonna need anything. They need more Snoke and more of like the whatever the religion is of the Jedi, like more of that, like the temples and stuff like that. Like seeing them, they just need.
You want to see more of the universe.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I would say you need.
I want to see more of that too. And what's happening now is they know they can string us along and sell us the most basic. So essentially what they're doing is just going, well, we hooked you on, so don't worry about this. And they're just going to keep doing that and doing it. It's like, at one point, I'm just going to kind of get sick of this. And I'm going to be first in line to goddamn see Star Wars and everything. But I've been here before and nothing's new over here, It's...
We're still
But
pretty much
Porgs and
gonna
you
like,
guys. Porg, well, those stupid little bird things, they're new.
like,
Fuck them.
I don't know. I think there's something to say about, example, Lord of the Rings, right? Where the trilogy, it all, like, little things mattered, and then the ultimate end and stuff like that. Game of Thrones, or something where little things, everything matters, and there's an end in sight and stuff like that. So that, there is a universe, but it just seems they're given maybe we'll get it. We'll see more of it with the Han Solo spin-off movie. I kind of doubt it, but maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe.
If we were going to see more of it with a spin-off movie, they wouldn't call it Han Solo.
Yeah, you're right. So I
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping that this could provide some differentness because I haven't really seen the spoiler, but you saying like there's a Death Star that just kind of like So I think we're all just saying it can be better and we want it to, and just I don't know, create something different like that we've never
It's
seen
funny
before.
you mentioned the Death Star again as well, though, because I mean, we might have been more open to seeing like a destroyed Death Star throne room with Snoke in it in this movie if we hadn't just gotten another fucking Death Star in the previous movie. And it's like, even Rogue One, it all revolves around the Death Star plans. It's just like, we're kind of sick of Death Stars at this point. Do something different.
I honestly want them
At
to
least the
take,
prequels had no Death Stars until the
right.
very end.
And I honestly want them to take the most radical approach they could take to Star Wars. Like, can you please just, like, make us expect something and then completely go the opposite way and make everybody shocked? Like, I would love it if, I'm not saying it's going to happen or something, but it's like, can they just, like, change the fundamentals of the universe, like somehow?
I would say so.
Like,
No, because if the second they change it, the second people don't like it. That's the problem they got at the minute. Like they have to play it safe and play on nostalgia. Like,
I mean,
Tom said the prequels didn't have a Death Star. Technically, they all had some super weapon that was going to destroy something.
yeah, but that's
It's all,
movies,
like,
I
it might
guess.
not be a quote Death Star, but it's still very similar. Like a new hat doesn't really change much, and that's what they're going for because they have to. Because no one wants anything different.
But it's still a new hat, though.
Yeah, I guess what it's I don't know. Some people would take this as the wrong way because like Marvel movies have been necessarily like they're not like the end all be all, but there is something to take away from them in building a universe and like Homecoming, right? So there's people who don't like it, but what you can say it did is it gave you the neighborhood feel, and then you have Ragnarok that's gonna give you this like on a different planet, and it's also like world ending type of stuff. So like there's
Almost like an LSD
movies.
trip feel.
Yeah,
Like,
so
it's very wacky and psychedelic looking.
Not every franchise needs the whole world, but something like Star Wars needs more of a world building. Where I'm assuming that a lot of people are reading the extended universe that they're doing now. Like the people who watch the movies are not necessarily all reading the extended universe. So there might be cool stories going on in the comics, in the books, maybe in the TV shows, but it's not like building in the movies. Yeah. It needs to be on screen to feel real, I would say. And that's a little bit kind of the whole everything's connected in the MCU and they could cross over. It needs to feel real for people to get more excited.
Star Wars is taking a next step into everything is shared because it's like every book,
Everything.
short story, comic, TV show they're putting out. Games. It's all within the same universe. And like you're getting to that point where the movies are clearly the primary. So nothing else can be a bigger stake, So you can't be like, oh, this takes place 50 years in the future and the galaxy's in peril. And then be like, oh, look, it's Skywalker's kid because, well, okay, that's a giant spoiler. We know he's going to have kids. Like, that's what Star Wars is missing now. And my hope is once this trilogy is done, with 9, that they can maybe just start jumping around, go thousands of years in the future, thousands in the past, go completely new. Here's the thing. I don't ever want to see another fucking AT-AT Walker again. Ever in my goddamn life. And I know I'm going to get it in every movie. I know Han Solo's going to have a different take on one. I know Han Solo's, by the sound of it, going to have fucking Darth Vader in it. It's...
really?
Like, come on.
I hadn't heard that, man.
Like,
that really puts me off.
Even... I mean, we all kind of know the stories of Darth Vader, or most of us do, of like what he would do, and we got a glimpse of that in Rogue One, right? And I wish we would have been able to see more of that, but limitations of technology back in the day. So I would hope that with Kylo Ren we could see more of whatever like it is of his powers, or there were some great stories with Darth Vader and what he could do. And remember in Rogue One where you just see like it's like a horror movie type of thing where you just that's like everybody's favorite scene, right?
I will actually talk about it here for a second right now. The best Darth Vader story possibly I've ever read is going on right now in Darth Vader Volume 2 by Marvel. It takes place literally starts moments after that no scene, and instead of him getting a saber, we see Palpatine, and he's like, you don't get a saber. You're not worthy of it, but there is a Jedi that went into hiding like 25 years ago. Go kill this dude because he's badass. And Darth Vader, like, he's brand new. He gets fucking destroyed. He gets ripped apart. Like, this dude is destroying him. And the way he figures is, I'm going to win. And he uses a Jedi's weakness and literally drowns, like, an entire city because, like, the Jedi has to save the people, so he gets distracted.
Yeah.
And it's all about Vader realizing that Anakin needs to die for Darth Vader to be stillborn. And it's the story, and I think it's like Colin Bunn writing. I might have that one off because I'm reading another Colin Bunn.
Wasn't it Charles Soule?
Charles, that's the one.
Might
Yep. So, dude,
Sounds amazing. I'm gonna have
when
to pick
Volume
this up.
1 is out, anybody that loves Star Wars needs to read this because it really gets to the core of the character. It's like, can we just have that instead of Darth Vader making glorified cameos? Because that sucks. Like, it's like, oh, look, Vader shows
Darth
up
Vader
for 30
should be the
seconds.
Stan Lee of the Star Wars universe.
Right, and he's gonna be, so it's... I don't know. People should just read the Star Wars comics because they're goddamn brilliant. Like, all of them have been good, and Mace Windu is starting pretty soon, so that's going to be pretty awesome. So, you know, Star Wars. And we'll talk more about Star Wars in the future of this podcast, I'm pretty sure, because, hey, there's a new Star Wars coming in, like, 4.5 months, so...
Yep.
Yeah.
You can be sure there'll be a lot of Star Wars talk in the build-up.
Oh, God, yeah. Let's talk about Spider-Man and his box office. So... it's officially out in Japan. Spider-Man is crossing that 700 million, and
Oh, it's already crossed it.
oh, good. But believe it or not, people are still deeming that this is a failure.
I mean, it
What
is
figures
it
are they
is.
pointing to claim that it's a failure? Like, what are they comparing it against?
Because it's not up to Raimi numbers.
Yeah.
Well, the Raimi number,
Even though it kind of is.
Yeah.
But even like the Raimi films, it's like the James Cameron thing. It was released again in the UK ages later because they made a new age classification because kids couldn't see it originally.
Really?
Yeah, when the 12A thing, like, it was made for Spider-Man. Like, they put out new trailers like that. Now the whole family can go for the ultimate spin, and it's like, yeah,
So-
they released it again.
Here's the numbers I'll tell you quickly. So currently Homecoming sits at 702 million. And it's going to overtake Amazing Spider-Man 2 and possibly The Amazing Spider-Man. It's definitely not going to touch the Raimi trilogy because it would need to do a lot by then. And out of the Raimi trilogy, the best movie, Spider-Man 2, is the one that did the worst. So,
Yeah.
but here's the thing I think people are
3
ignoring
only
with
did the
this.
best because it came after 2.
And it had Venom, so people were excited by it. But I think what people are missing about Spider-Man Homecoming is its budget and character fatigue, which is very, very much real. I mean, I literally have friends who love Spider-Man. They're like, yeah, I'm not seeing this till it's like Netflix or something. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm just sick of Spider-Man. I'm like, but you saw Ant-Man? All right, fair enough. Like, so
That's true.
I don't think Spider-Man's a failure at all. Like, I think people are just
No,
pulling
it's-
numbers out of their ass.
Like,
How did it do compared to the Amazing Spider-Man?
Oh, it's going to
One,
beat
two.
them within the next 2 weeks.
I was going to say, it's already beating them domestically anyway.
Oh, well, it's beat them
So how is
domestically.
that a failure? Like, it's
But no.
Here's
it's a
the
return
thing.
to form, if anything.
Here's the thing people already forget, and I've looked at the numbers. I went back through some fucking old-ass numbers. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, by the time it got home release and they calculated all of the money they spent on marketing, only made $70.2 million in profit. Spider-Man Homecoming has already quadrupled that in just box office take. Home release isn't even accounted for because Spider-Man, or Amazing Spider-Man 2, is the most expensive movie Sony ever put out. With marketing, it was something like $630 million to make.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, like, Sony is probably so happy and through the roof with this movie that it's probably the only movie that's keeping them afloat right now. So,
I mean,
you
the
know.
Emoji Movie's made a profit. Somehow.
That was fucking Sony?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course so.
yeah,
course it
the
was
thing,
so.
the budget. Yeah, the budget was like 50 million.
What other studio would put out that movie, though?
I must have, like,
Sony?
wiped that from my fucking mind, really. Oh, man. That's
From the
bad.
studio that brought you Pixels.
And also, just to kind of compare it, Spider-Man Homecoming is the 8th highest grossing movie in the MCU, and it's going to pass Winter Soldier and probably Guardians of the Galaxy 1. So, it's going to be in the top, like, 6 by the end of its run. So that's really not bad at all. I think people just kind of wanted to, I don't know, like throw the movie
See,
under the
I don't
bus.
know what's going on with these articles. Like, it's clearly not failed. Like,
I don't
know
know
why.
either. I think people just are. It's that we want to see the MCU fail, so spin this article this way. You know, it's.
Yeah,
I mean,
biased, and it's
it
funny
goes
'cause-
both ways, I would say, though. I mean, even the DC movies
Oh, of course.
have gotten those articles of like it failed when it's like, not really. You know, maybe you
But-
didn't like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it failed.
I mean, BVS at the end of the day didn't make that much profit.
But it didn't
No, I
necessarily
think
fail,
I-
though.
Oh no, at the box
Yeah, it
office,
wasn't an
it
all-out
didn't. But if
failure.
you look at like the final profit numbers, it made less than the Dark World.
Yeah, but it didn't fail
Oh
per
no,
se.
I'm not saying it.
I'm just saying, like, those are like easily those. You know, it's just how it is. Kind of nowadays, you know, even actors are getting into it, kind of fighting critics, I guess, because it's like, really, how can you say that when either this hasn't come out or look at the numbers and it's like, are
The
people
problem
just
is
making
that-
articles for making it?
Like, the problem is people want a story, and you need a story to get the clicks.
Yeah.
So you
It's
make up the story.
I mean, directors, actors, everybody work like they're just fighting the critics now because like critics have gone mad, as they say, right? Like, I don't know. I like to think that, but you know, that's the whole thing that's happening at the moment.
Critics
that-
have always been the same. It's just people.
No,
you're
but
hearing
that's the
more
whole.
backlash to it because of the internet. That's all it is.
Well, that's the whole stigma right now that critics have gone mad. Like, that's the whole thing on the internet. Like, don't trust critics.
Yeah, I know that's the stigma, but I'm saying critics have always been the same. You're just hearing more about people going against them because of the internet, because you can
Yeah.
see the reactions to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing. Like, I know you brought up some of the DC movies, and this also has a thing. Like, I constantly see Wonder Woman beats all these MCU and DC movies at box office, and I go look at the numbers. I'm like, well, only in certain domestic parts, but if we look at it overall, it's still not up to some of those other numbers. But you like, it's also like playing favorites, if that makes sense, because it's like Wonder Woman is doing so
But
good,
to be
and
fair, it did do good.
oh yeah, of God, yeah.
It's also one of those things, like I said both ways, but this also goes the same thing where they'll say, "Oh, it failed. Oh, it's the best movie ever." Like, there's never really middle ground anymore. You know,
No,
it's always like it failed, complete mess, reboot, or it's the best movie ever. Make a million sequels for it. It's never really like those.
Wonder Woman's first movie has made nearly 800 million. So of course you're going to get people going like, "Oh, it's beaten this, it's done this."
Yeah.
That's
Well, because that also would get people to click. You know, if you say Wonder Woman beats Spider-Man Homecoming, that's going to get people to click. If you
of
say
course.
Spider-Man beats Wonder Woman, that's going to get people to click. It doesn't necessarily matter which is real. It's going to kind of get both people to click. So
So
that's
Fake
just-
news.
I guess we'll talk more about Spider-Man when it ends its run in the world. So probably another couple weeks, and then we'll know how it lands and compares to everybody else. And then obviously home release is going to happen, so that'll be some big numbers. So we'll talk more about that when it's time. Our last topic is the man who said he would rather like kill himself to do another James Bond is doing another James Bond, as Daniel Craig is back.
And I don't
Is
care.
news like 3-4 weeks old now?
I mean, either way, it's still worth
this
talking
a long
about,
time.
though.
Here's why I
because
wanted to
it's
actually
James
bring it up.
Bond.
It pisses me off a little bit.
I wanted to bring it up specifically because I want to know how you guys feel about James Bond, because ever since Craig started, I liked Casino Royale,
It's
and
cool.
then I hated all of them after.
I'm not a Daniel Craig fan, so I've never watched any of them, really. Just like, no.
I agree Casino Royale is the best one. I did like Skyfall to a certain extent, but the other two are just trash.
I think they're all
Quantum of
alright.
Solace is nothing.
Oh.
There's no story. It's just action scene after action scene. It's like watching the video game cutscene version of the movie. And yeah, I don't even want to talk about Spectre because that was just insulting. He's
this
Bond's
is a-
brother now. Fuck you.
This is probably his last one, maybe, right? I would say, because like it's about that time where how many movies has he? So Skyfall, Quantum of Solace.
It's like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
It's
so this
cool.
might be his last one per se, and I think they just wanted it. And like, I know he said he didn't want to do it anymore because that's, let's be honest, that's probably such a gruesome schedule and whatever he has to do. And I mean, even Hugh Jackman has said it's so like terrible being like Wolverine because of the diet he has to be and all that, and it's hardly ever living really because of the restraints he has to have to be in a certain physique to play Wolverine. So like, it's cool that these actors get once in a lifetime parts. They get fame, they can help out people, but can't forget that there is still a struggle to it where like their bodies are pushed to certain limits that normal people's body wouldn't be able to, so
it's a shame as well though, because Sean Connery didn't have to get into that sort of shape, and Roger Moore certainly didn't. Can you imagine Roger Moore in his like 70s trying to train to be Bond still, like?
Well, that's kind of like cardigan. The new age type of thing, I guess, right? It's the modern way of doing things, and I feel like this is gonna be the last one. That if it is, it's cool, and I've been thinking like, will Idris Elba be it? Because I don't think I think people want that.
That's
they don't
fantastic.
necessarily want. Yeah, but I know, no. I'm just saying like I think people really want that, but I don't think it'll get it.
I don't think people are gonna get
He's
that
even
either.
said himself he's too old.
But he's not too old. That's the thing.
I know he's not, but I mean the thing that annoys me about it is clearly he's not wanting to do the role anymore, and you could tell during Spectre that he didn't really want to be there. But, I mean, this is the 25th film. It kind of, for me, rather than do one more with Daniel Craig, they should have just taken the opportunity, cast a new Bond, and, like, set off 25 as, like, right, we're going forward now with a new Bond. This is the beginning of a fresh new take.
Well, I mean, that's going to happen anyways with 26. Like, does it really matter the number?
I think 25, it would have been a good time to do it.
Yeah, but it's you're still going to get the same thing. You're still going to get, we're getting the new Bond. It's going to be, like, Renaissance of Bond or something like that. It's going to be like a celebration of Bond or something for the it's just numbers. Like I don't think they necessarily matter.
For the 25th anniversary, all they need to do for me is bring back some of the gadgets. There's a few little things here and there, but they got away from
why does the 25th anniversary mean more than the 26th? It's like I'm just saying like
it's the big one. It's the big year. I mean,
26 is a bigger number than 25.
Yeah, but it's less significant.
I think they gotta do that.
It's a quarter of a way to 100.
Yeah.
26 is still more than a quarter away. So it's like I just don't get the whole numbering thing like that. It could happen.
Well, it's like the 21st birthday thing. Like it's just there's no reason. Well, I don't know if there's reason behind it or not, but it's just there.
I mean, I guess you're able to buy alcohol legally.
Well, I mean,
at least in America, in the United States. But
I think it's
really
got more significance here because there's like a thing with the Queen since the coronation. It's like the Jubilee anniversaries. It's like 25 years, 50 years, 75 years, and it's maybe because it's just a British thing. It feels like 25 should mean something more. But
it's a big thing in Britain. If you look at it, like, James Bond is big over there. Like that's like a thing.
It's huge.
It's.
I had a big thing on my wall for years, like of all the Bonds on it, and including Craig, and it was just.
See, I
just
never
felt right because it's a Bond.
I never
British.
took James Bond as inherently British.
I feel
like he could be anything, can he? Like,
he really could be.
Yeah, you can.
They're British films
it's a
they
spy
shot
movie.
all around the world. Very few times in Britain, except on the soundstage.
No, it's just the spy movie that happens to be in England. Like, it's not inherently British.
Also, there's
It's Her
like,
Majesty's Secret Service.
There's also so many other different James Bond style things now. Like. I mean,
Kingsman's doing Bond better than Bond.
Oh my God, Kingsman is the perfect James Bond. It really is.
I think, look, I honestly think you can make anything into any kind of subject. I've always said that. I think you can make World War II into a comedy if you want, as long as it's written right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think the only reason we're all like Kingsman's a great movie, right? We're all in love with it, but the main reason is because. It was after a while. They took James Bond away from how Kingsman's doing it now to the more dramatic side, to the more serious side, and it probably needed that because I think people were feeling the same way. So like before the more serious Bonds, I'm sure people were like, "Oh, I'm getting tired of him doing all this stupid moves and always making one-liner stuff like that." Because it doesn't matter how much you like something. Eventually, you kind of get tired of it. You're like, "All right, I want to try something else," and then you come back to it. So that's the thing. I think. Coming back to the whole cheesiness of it that's the cool thing now.
I think they're going to have a problem with that because in the years they decided to Nolanize the hell out of James Bond. Yeah. Every other franchise has come out, done their own take on James Bond, and made it better. That now if they come back there, they can do some of those same stunts, sure, but it's like, but Fast and Furious has done that. Oh, Mission Impossible has gone. Fucking Tom Cruise has actually done that. Like, he's dove off the fucking moon at this point, you know? Like what do you have to do now?
Even before Casino Royale came out, I mean, I don't know if this was just the cynical British newspapers saying this, but they were all just like, is Bond going to be able to compete now with the likes of Jason Bourne? Because, like, that was getting big at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was big at the time. I think the first 2 were out. But it's just... There's so many other franchises now, and it's like, are they doing it better? I do still prefer Bond over Bourne, I'll be honest, but some of those Bourne movies are damn good.
Yeah, they are.
So, I was curious as to the whole, like... Craig thing. So I looked it up, and as of recently, like 12 hours or less, Daniel Craig has came out and said that nothing's official. He's not officially back.
Yeah,
it's more just up in there that they might want him, but he just says that he hasn't renewed like with contract or whatever. Like because neither him or director was announced for Bond 25. So.
It's rumored as well that Nolan's going to be attached. Like Christopher Nolan actually.
Oh, he's not.
He wants to do one, but then he made Inception and said that's basically what he wanted to do, so he got it out of his system.
I wouldn't mind Nolan doing that, but at the same time, that's kind of more of the same what we had with Craig, and that, you know, it's times have changed. Now it's people want more of the cheesiness, fun flavor type of stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's just out there. Not, you know, the whole serious stuff. We've done it already, and we liked the movies that came out around that time, but now it's like a different time. Now people want a different theme of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remembered as well, it wasn't even just Jason Bourne, like Jack Bauer was also, they said it was all the JBs.
Yeah.
The best one.
24, you had like... I mean, just look at those seasons. It was
like, what are they
were doing movies on television. It was amazing.
Like, hypothetically, they're going to make a big deal out of it. I'm just saying, you know, out of nowhere, they're going to be like, oh, James Bond is going to drive a car out of a building in Dubai. I'll be like, yeah, 7 other movies have done that in the last 5 years. Like, it's kind of fallen off of this thing, and I mean, I'm maybe gonna watch it, depending on how it looks. But so far, right now, I think James Bond, to me personally, needs to be reinvented along with some other franchises that recently come out and are trying to reinvent themselves. Like, I don't want what they've been doing lately, and I don't know if they're gonna keep me interested. And a bunch of other people I talked to that are all kind of feeling the same way we are. They're like, well, James Bond, I guess.
It's just a time, I would say.
Each Bond changes the tone entirely.
Yeah.
Roger Moore's very different. You go from Roger Moore to Timothy Dalton, and it's like people were not ready for that change. He basically just did what Daniel Craig ended up doing with a.
I think we said it before, where something like the Batman movies, right? Where Tim Burton's Batman movies, Nolan's, and then now Snyder's, like each of them, like with their characters, how they're portrayed, is very reflective on the time. And I would say James Bond as well, but Daniel Craig's is kind of like something that from the past that just won't die in a way, where it's already, the times have changed. Like everything goes quicker now, right? So you have to adapt quicker, and you have to go back to the older, more wacky style, because that's what people want nowadays. But also, if it does that, would people just be like, I have Kingsman. Do I really need James Bond? Like, you know, you'd have to be even,
possibly not.
You'd have to be even more inventive. That's why. So like, it is back to the whole wackiness and like some cheesiness, but more fun of it. But you're gonna have to be even more creative, because now you have all these other franchises that are doing what you were supposed to be doing a couple years ago, but now you're too late to the game. So you have to do something even different. So like, yeah, you could do that, but what else are you gonna do to bring people in?
The best thing ever would be if this was like 1997, because we'd get like James Bond versus Freddy Krueger. And I'd be like, fuck yeah, they're fucking ballsy, right? And like Extreme Armin would have been fucking all over that with his Mountain Dew and his fucking, I don't know, Papa Roach CD, or how I listened to back then.
See, I mean, I think it was smart. I mean, he's not my favourite Bond, but I think what Pierce Brosnan did was clever.
Oh, I love that.
Certain elements of Sean Connery, certain elements of Roger Moore, certain elements of Dalton. He didn't really take anything from Lazenby, but he was just ripping off Sean Connery. But he was a mishmash of the previous Bonds, and that sort of gave him this fresh thing, because you hadn't really seen all those qualities in one man before. Like, you'd seen it over decades. But I really like what Pierce Brosnan did with Bond. I just wish he had better material to work with. Only like one of his movies is actually any good.
You mean you didn't like Die Another Day?
with the invisible car. And they're sliding about at the end at the North or the South Pole, and there's a giant laser from the moon shooting the ice behind him, and he's driving away. Yeah, that was amazing.
Are you sure that's not the plot to the last Fast and Furious you just described?
I'll tell you what, the Fast and the Furious guys should just take over the Bond franchise, because I'd love to see that.
Oh, dude, can you imagine, like, James Bond? Oh.
Well,
get Jason Statham as Bond.
I would say Fast and Furious could be its own kind of James Bondy type thing, where James Bond has lasted for but like not like that sense. I would say in 10 years, right, where all these actors who are in the Fast and Furious movies probably wouldn't be able to be in it anymore. You can either introduce new characters or just recast them and just keep going with different stories.
Aren't they already doing that with the Hobbs spin-off?
No, but eventually The Rock is not going to be able to play Hobbs. Like, that's not what I mean, per se. It's more so of just that long-lasting effect. Where James Bond has been around for, it's going to be his 25th, like, in movies, so you could keep Fast and Furious going as a modern James Bond where you just recast. Like, there's a different Dom. That's going to suck, because then you could have did that with Brian, but then you don't want to because you want to respect Paul Walker. So, you just... recast, and whether it's, you can either do that and just making like somebody else Dom, or you can just introduce new characters that take up the mantle. It doesn't necessarily have to be kids.
You can have new people enter the family, like they're not related, so you don't like you say, you don't need them to be kids. You can have people come in and join their group, like Paul Walker did in the first movie.
I know people want technically an end, or some say like, oh, it should have ended with 7 because Paul Walker and all that. Well, I'm sure Paul would have wanted it to keep going. I'm sure, like they even say Paul would have. Vin Diesel even says Paul would have wanted to keep going because he loved making the movies with his quote unquote family that he's worked for like a decade or more. So I just think this is something that doesn't necessarily need to have an end. I know some people wish it would, but you don't have to see it. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah. You don't have to see it. I don't know why you're like, oh, it needs to. You don't have. Who's making you go see these movies? Damn.
Yeah.
It's almost a shame that Fast and Furious is Universal and Bond is at Sony, because you can almost imagine, what was that one?
Oh, don't worry, Bond is going to leave Sony real soon.
I was going to say,
they didn't make a bidding war. Yeah.
They went to England, though, in one of them, and worked for MI6 to capture the brother of Jason Statham. And it's just like, if they were owned by the same studio, I could totally see a new Bond universe being in the same universe as Fast and Furious. They have the same level of ridiculousness that I just think that would be fun with Bond. They're supposed to be a bit over the top.
I mean, well, we'll talk more about Bond, I think, in the future, but I don't know how I feel about them. Like, they'll probably spin off James Bond soon. So.
But see, I don't know if you necessarily need a spin-off when it's been going on for so long. Can't you just keep...
What can you spin out of Bond?
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. What's more likely to happen? Trigger everybody by making James Bond a female finally and changing her, or spinning off with a female James Bond codename? Because one of those two is going to happen in the next decade.
I think it's triggering everybody, to be fair.
Leiter, Bond's friend from the CIA, who was played in the Daniel Craig ones by Bernard from Westworld.
Oh, yeah.
Just do a spin-off about Phoenix Leiter.
I know you're saying, like, Hobbs, the Fast and Furious spin-off. Not every franchise needs a spin-off. I don't think Fast and Furious needs one. I think you make one every 2 to 3 years, right? And then eventually I know I love the movies, but I think you just make one every 2 to 3 years, and then eventually either recast or just introduce new characters where Dom can leave.
I 100% agree with you, but the studio doesn't.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true.
thing. They're the ones that are like, but can you imagine a James Bond universe? Oh, it's like nobody wants that, but they're like, but money. And
everybody, I think, feels that way except the studio. Like, we all agree 100%.
I think Fast and Furious has a universe without even needing a spin-off. Like, they have like some of those like short films that were added on DVDs, and then one character from Fast and Furious 1 was brought back in Furious 7. So it's like, they have for people who are fans of it, they have a little universe that they build. You don't necessarily need that, but you're right. Studios, more money and stuff like that. I get it, but I just don't think it's really that necessary. One thing I wanted to ask, though, before we ended is, do y'all think Mission Impossible will be the same thing where they just recast Tom Cruise and it's someone else and it's Ethan Hunt?
Oh, hell no, because Tom Cruise is going to go through experimental gene replacement to stay young forever. So,
True. Very true.
I
very
think
true.
eventually it will happen because I mean it was based on a TV series originally.
Yeah, it's gonna
Like,
happen.
they're-
but-
he's
it's gonna go
technically
that
the
James
second
Bond
person to
route,
play
like-
it.
Those are Mission Impossible, James Bond, Fast and Furious. Those are ones that don't need spin-offs that can keep going. Whether you're recasting, introducing new characters that take up the mantle, stuff like that, that can go for like James Bond level. I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know some
Tom
people
Cruise
would be
was
like,
supposed to leave during. Sorry, go on.
yeah,
No, I
yeah.
was gonna say, I know some people are gonna like, oh, they don't need to go on for 20, 30 years. Well, you know, some people would argue that they do need to go on for
And so
20,
hasn't
30
Mission
years.
Impossible been going for like 20 years anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like-
god. Holy shit, Mission Impossible is a legacy franchise. What the fuck has happened?
He was supposed to leave though during what was it, Rogue Nation, the Brad Bird one,
Mm-hmm.
and like he was supposed to leave during that, and it was going to be handed over, and Jeremy Renner was going to be leading the Mission Impossible franchise, and apparently the Bourne franchise at the same time. And
Yeah, I remember that.
in both movies, Matt Damon came back a movie later for his series, and when Tom Cruise read the Brad Bird script, he wanted to stick around. So
You know,
Fair
that
enough.
reminds me,
Well,
they made that Jason Bourne spinoff with
Jeremy Renner.
yeah, and actually enjoyed. I mean, it wasn't that great of a movie, but I enjoyed the concept of it, and I was like, you know what, you could have just like did that in a Jason Bourne movie. Like you didn't necessarily need its own spinoff. You could have introduced him there, and then maybe Matt Damon's like, bye, and then you have Jeremy Renner just like take up as Jason Bourne because it's a code name.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So like you know
I mean,
that
technically, Tokyo Drift was a spin-off.
Yeah.
yeah
It was. I mean, apart from Vin Diesel being in it, but I mean, none of the main characters in that movie
Yeah,
had been in
yeah,
it.
Well,
I think
Han-
it's considered a spin-off.
Han,
Yeah.
Han
I
became
wouldn't.
big later.
I
Han
was
was
gonna say
great.
Han was afterwards.
I consider like each of them as the main movie, and because it's every like 2 to 3 years, right? So they're each a main movie. I guess if you want, technically, it could be a spinoff, but I always count spinoffs as kind of like they could kind of go at the same time as the main one. Even though I guess Fantastic Beasts might be a spinoff, but
That's
that's
100% a spin-off.
yeah, but
Oh,
that's
yeah,
also kind of like gonna be its own thing. So
It's a prequel as well. Like it's
Yeah,
a spin-off,
it's
a
a spin-off or a
prequel.
prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's there's many of these things. We could go on forever, but we're not.
True. So we'll
I
be
wouldn't
back
mind
to
a
talk.
Roman spin-off.
Man, we'll be back
With
to
Fast and
talk
Furious
more
is
about
great.
all this stuff and James Bond probably in the near future because they have a hard set release date. So we'll see when that gets delayed. Don't worry about that one. But we'll be back to talk more about this. And thanks for joining us, everybody, for another podcast.